Greetings. Shop Talk Podcast. Greetings. I'm Norma Jo Thomas, and I am here with my favorite barber, Jamel Thomas, and we are at the historic Joe's Barbershop, right here in the historic African American community of Acres Homes. Joe's Barbershop is the home of Shop Talk. The Shop Talk podcast celebrates the old school black barbershop, where there were conversations about just about everything relevant to the black community. Tune in to Shop Talk. Greetings and welcome to Shop Talk. I'm Norma Jo Thomas and I am your host. Today I have with me our co-host, Miss Angela Faye CeZar. So it's just the two of us today. And we're going to be chopping it up about Black Money Matters.
Black dollars.
The black dollars. And I think it was Claude Anderson who said that black economics is the final frontier. And if I'm not mistaken, he was speaking about that with reference to the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. Like the Black Power movement and the civil rights movement were meant to address specific issues and concerns regarding equal rights and human rights for black people. But what we seem to never have addressed is our own economic development as a community. We addressed our economics in terms of participating in the capitalist society that we live in. But what about our own resurgence or rebuilding of wealth in the black community? And how we spend our dollars and what dollars go in and out of the community. Correct. That in terms of economic development is kind of like the final frontier. Right. It's like if we can get there, if we can start to talk to black people about our money and how much money we push out into society, but we don't bring back into our own communities, and not only our own communities, but into our own families, then indeed I can see why he would make the statement that it's the final frontier. That's our topic for today. Black Money Matters, the final frontier. And I'm going to hand it on over to our financial guru of Shop Talk, Angela Faye CeZar. But I do want to say this. I want to make sure we get this in and then I'm going to let it go.
Okay.
Systemic issues that have crippled the black community financially. Let's just kind of just make sure you add that in there because I really want to talk about that because I think this thing is historic. There's some nowness that has to be addressed, but there's also some, as I heard a Baptist preacher say one time, there's some historicity involved, if that's actually a word.
Right, absolutely.
All right.
So, the biggest thing, we have to understand the value of that black financial pocketbook. We have to understand, one, how much value it has in just the economic system of where we live in the world. And two, we have to understand what it can do for us as a race, as a people, how it can transform our communities, how it can put us back to those days of Greenwood, Black Wall Street. We had Black Wall Streets all over the United States. True. They were just taken out, just like, Greenwood was. In many different times, many different phases. It was like, how do you say, the systematic approach to getting rid of the Black Power movement that was happening. And then it got to the point to where it became self-destructive. When we had individuals in our community that was promoting and showing and educating us on how we could move forward economically, and we then begin to collapse that ourselves. True. And I see that on a daily basis when I talk to people and try to educate them on financial literacy, how removed they are from understanding, and how often they say, oh, I already got something in place, or I already know. But they don't take the time just to hear. It used to be a time in our community when somebody wanted to share some knowledge with you, you would have the conversation.
You receive the knowledge.
You would listen. You wouldn't just say, oh, I'm good, or I got this. I can't even tell you the number of people that will tell me I'm good, and after a minute, then you talk to and you say, well, have you heard of this? I have no idea.
Yeah, I actually shared some information on social media that you and your organization had shared. And so I thought I would just kind of follow up with it and say, hey, if this is new to you guys, or if you want some more information, I know somebody who can get you this information, who can share the information with you. And a couple of people were like, oh, I got something going, I'm good. And that's cool. That's okay. But what we know is 9 times out of 10, they don't know, or what they think they know is only the tip of the iceberg. I think about my dad right here in this barbershop, how he built his own empire.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just this barbershop. He was a property owner. He owned other small businesses. My dad always had some kind of enterprise going on. And he told me one time when he was declining in terms of his health and his mobility, because actually his health was okay, but it was more his mobility. So he wasn't able to come to work. He wasn't able to drive and that sort of thing. But we were just chatting, and he loved to talk about the past and what he had been through and the work that he had done, because he was proud of himself, having come from nothing. And I mean zero, nothing on the backwoods of Louisiana. But he told me, he said, do you know that for a short period of my life, that I had amassed over $1 million in assets? This is what he said to me.
Yeah.
And right now we can say, oh, $1 million is nothing. But when you're talking about a black man from the backwoods of Louisiana with no education, who basically got his start because he utilized the GI Bill to go to barber college.
Yeah.
And he just always knew that he didn't want to be dirt poor his entire life. So even with what he was able to accomplish in his life, he had no knowledge of this. Imagine if some of the things that you teach in your financial literacy, and what some things that you're going to talk about in future episodes, imagine if he had that knowledge.
Absolutely.
And I know he would have been open to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I loved about Mr. Thomas, but I love about his legacy, is that he was a financially conscious person.
Yes.
And when I say that, I'm saying that from the perspective of he wasn't just about spending his dollars.
Oh, not at all.
And he also wasn't just about saving. He was about making the dollars grow.
Work for him and grow, absolutely.
Everything that he did was to turn over another source of revenue.
Yes, he did.
And you're absolutely right. He would have been very open. And he would have I can guarantee you, he would have said, oh, you can give me what kind of interest rate? And I'm not going to lose anything?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, but he just did what he knew to do. In his day, it started out with savings bonds.
Right.
You bought savings bonds.
Yeah.
Then it went to CDs, and you bought CDs.
Yeah.
And then you kept a savings, and you had a savings account, and then you invested. But I can tell you, he was frugal.
Yes.
He was frugal, because when he told me that, just in a joking manner, I said, man, you mean to tell me you had over $1 million in assets, and you couldn't even give me a new bicycle? You had to go down the street and get me the rustiest used bicycle your hands could find. Of course, eventually he did get me,
right.
We all wanted that banana seat bicycle. And so he did eventually get me a banana seat bicycle. But I told him I had to take a stinky metal lunch can to school, and I wanted the other lunch box with the princess on the cover. And so we laughed about it. But in essence, in addition to just having some kind of sixth sense about making his dollars work for him, he also had a sense of not trying to live beyond his means.
Right.
And let me add this: for several years, my dad was a single parent.
Yes.
Because my mom passed when I was 6 years old, and it was 5 years later or so that he remarried. So for several years, he was a single parent, and he still was able to maintain. My sisters and I lacked for nothing.
Right.
And
I think that is the beauty of it. Mr. Thomas is a classic example of what we call today the millionaire next door. Mm-hmm. When you look at them, you could not tell that they were a millionaire. Mm-hmm. And we say $1 million is nothing these days, but let me tell you something. $1 million has its value, even in today's marketplace.
Absolutely. No doubt
so
about
we have to make sure that we get that story straight. Because I tell you, I'd rather have $1 million than not. I mean, because that lets you know that you have money that you can build and continue to build off of. So that is very, very important. You know, I wanted to get back to the thing of some of the things that crippled us financially has kind of come from some of the things that we were taught, that were handed down. You know, we were taught to not discuss money.
True.
You know, we don't talk about your money with nobody. And the people that were telling us, usually our parents, our grandparents, they were telling us that for a reason. Mm-hmm. But we have got to have the money conversation with our children, with our nieces, with our nephews, with each other. We have got to talk about the value of the dollar so we can understand how to make it do what it needs to do for us.
Yeah.
You know, and there is that old saying, you know, you have to understand how money works. And just like everything else, money has a system. You know, it's available to everyone. You know, and just like your dad, he came from nothing, but he built something. He did it. And people have to understand how to do that. And if you think that Mr. Thomas could do that within with the little knowledge, and by no means am I taking anything away from his intellect, but I mean with the knowledge of money value that we have now, with the knowledge that they had then. You know, in his day, him having $1 million, him being a 6-figure earner in his community, him having multiple streams of revenue, all of that ties into place. Mm-hmm. And so the lack of communication within the household, within we'll talk about anything. Mm-hmm, you know, but we will not talk about money. You ask someone about money, they're either going to lie to you about what they got, or they're going to cut the conversation off. Yeah. You know, or they're going to come with their hand extended. Mm-hmm. So, but we have to have the conversation about the value and how money works so we can eliminate all of those issues and begin to build up something. Mm-hmm. You know, our community, we as Black people, our community has been one of the most predominant communities that has put out the dollars.
Yes.
We know how to spend.
We
spend. Every dime, nickel, penny we get, we make, and it goes right back out. And it's not all going back out to the basic responsibilities of life.
True.
You know, shelter, food, and clothing, and stuff like that. A lot of it's going out to stuff that we don't need. And like you said, your father was frugal, but it was that attitude that kept him above that sinking ship of finances.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about growing up here in the community, and at a time when a lot of our homes, well, the majority of our homes, if not all of them, did not have running water because we were not a part of the city. And we were considered the largest unincorporated community in the South, and Life magazine said that we were the largest in the nation. But that had to do with the determination and the insight and ingenuity and vision that the founders of this community had. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about how we had wells, you know, that's where we got our water from,
right.
and how great and wonderful that water tastes because it was cool, and it was almost a little sweet or whatever. But I remember growing up right down the street, we had a little wood frame house. My dad built that house. My dad was not a construction person, but my dad built that little wood frame house down there. And we were the first on our block to have indoor plumbing. Mm-hmm. And I remember people from the street coming down to see and to flush the toilet, to see how that worked, to turn on my mom's faucet in the kitchen, to see that water coming through the faucet, because we were the first family. I remember we were among the first on our block to have color television, you know, and people came down to see what it looked like. But so I'm saying all that to say is that as frugal as my dad was, he also had a quality of life that he desired to have.
Right.
And he took the steps necessary to achieve that quality of life.
Yes.
So saying that, you know, you need to keep a budget.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you can't spend anything on anything. Doesn't mean that you can't have a certain quality of life. To manage your money, to make sure that your money is working for you. doesn't mean that you cannot aspire and achieve a certain quality of life.
That's true.
You know, I don't remember when we moved because I was about 4 years old. When we moved from that house to Yorkdale. And that was a burgeoning Black community. That's when we were able to build brick houses then, you know. And if you moved from a wood frame house into a brick house, you were moving someplace, you know. But that's what was happening in the community as it was growing and developing. But that was something that my mom and dad wanted.
Right.
And they were able to achieve that. So again, we have a tendency now not to spend in the right direction. Yeah. And I know that's one of the issues, because we can't say that about everybody.
Right.
But that's one of the issues that plagues our community.
I hear people say all the time, I'm not making enough. Heck, there was a time when I wasn't making enough, you know, but I had to make some adjustments. You know, that old saying about keeping up with the Joneses. How important is that to you? Or how important is it for you to make sure that your children and your children's children have something? You're passing something down.
So now we're tackling on another one. We've got, you know, the destruction of Black wealth. We've got the mindset and the languaging of I'm going to say of poverty. And now you were just saying, what were you just saying a second ago, just before? Because to me, it looked like you were taking us into another avenue.
Well, what was it I was saying?
I kind of think maybe I had a senior moment and I forgot where it was I was going to go with the thought. So maybe it'll come back to me.
But, you know, one of the things that we want to understand is that we don't know what we don't know, so that we can make the changes to help improve our condition.
In addition to our history, and our heritage in this country.
Right.
You know, we talked just briefly a minute ago about, you know, the Black Wall Streets that we had across this country where we were building wealth. We had businesses, we had banks, we were doctors, we were lawyers, we were all of whatever, we were farmers.
Right.
We were garbage collectors. We had our own garbage companies. We had our trash companies. We had our whatever it was we needed, we had.
Right.
And so families were able to thrive and build and grow, and they were simply demolished.
Yes.
They were just simply, families were sent running in the middle of the night with nothing. Only to come back and if they were able to come back, only to discover that the land that they owned was no longer there.
Right.
It was simply seized from them.
Right.
So you got that element that we didn't have the opportunity to pass down that wealth.
Right.
You know, and you have families and people who look down at us and say, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, guess what? You wearing my boots.
Yeah. But, you know, the one thing that nobody can take from you, if you have it, is what you have up here. Because you can lose something, but if you did it one time, you can do it again.
Yeah. It might take some time because we're talking about resources.
We're talking about
just
resources.
A little disclaimer for our listeners and our viewers is that we ain't crazy.
Right.
You know, we understand that, you know, what it has taken our people to come back from that.
Right.
And that was the next thing I was going to point out that I think that you hit upon was the mindset.
Yeah.
You know, because and the languaging of it. I remember my dad used to always say money don't grow on trees.
Money does not grow on trees. However, you can make sure that you are planting a strong financial tree.
All right now.
A strong money tree. And I think that's where the financial literacy comes into place.
Okay, and pause right there. We're not going to end our conversation, but we are going to take a break because as always, I have to pause for an artistic impact. Artistic impact. This week's artistic impact for your listening pleasure, That One Thing, written and composed by Norma Jo Thomas, arranged by Benjamin B.J. Smith. Yes, yes, yes. Go ahead and give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up. Because, we can talk about these things all day long, but at some point in time, you have to touch a person inwardly so that they now begin to feel motivated or encouraged or inspired. They're inspirited. They become inspired to do something. And nothing does that like the arts.
You can say something, but then you can have that come behind it, or a song come behind it, or a piece come behind it, and it has a whole nother, it just drives it straight on where it needs to go. Absolutely.
Let's jump into this second half where we're talking about solutions. I don't ever want to come off as everything that we say about the Black community is blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah.
Because we're dealing with issues, no doubt. There's no need for conversation if we're not dealing with the issues and the concerns of the community, because it's always about moving upward, And in the spirit of the Black Barbershop conversation, these were conversations that held the community down and lifted the community up. So that uplift means that there's solutions.
Absolutely.
Means that, it's not the end of the road. All hope is not lost. So, and I know you're going to come back and you're going to lead actually 2 more episodes about financial literacy and Black Money Matters, and you're going to be bringing on your own guests.
Right, yeah. And
so I'm looking forward to that. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But as we prepare for that, as we lay the groundwork for that, let's talk solutions.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to share really quick is that I have 3 older brothers. Only girl, 3 older brothers. Each one of my brothers played a very important part in my life, But the finance thing was with my middle brother, Clarence. And he always talked to me about planning and money, and the things that I know today were not the things that he taught me, because the whole money value system changed over a period of time. But it took me to love personal finance, to want to know more about personal finance. And it's because of what he gave me, the nuggets, the conversations that we had, that made me want to do the different things. So back in the day when I was a police officer and all my police buddies were working extra duty, they were spending their money. They were doing this, they were doing that. I was doing something totally different with my money, right? I was saving it, right? And then everything that was happening, I wasn't trying to keep up with my peers. I wasn't trying to dress like them. I was me, and it was the things that he taught me that gave me an understanding, a perspective of what I needed to do. It gave me a foundation, so to speak. So starting with that, I want people to understand that there is a formula to building wealth. There is a plan on how you get from 0, and we're just going to use a scale of 0 to 100. There is a plan of how to get from 0 to 100, right? And the problem is that most of us, what we know about finance is that we know we make money and we need to save some of the money. Mm-hmm. But I was reading a post today by one of my business partners, and she posted something that was said by a pastor. How do you expect your congregation member to tithe 10% when they don't know how to budget 90?
Yeah. Yeah. It's about holding yourself accountable. And being a good steward.
Being a good steward. I remember when I was over the financial ministry at church, that was the whole thing. Being a good steward of your money, being a good steward and understanding how this all works in a flow process, mm-hmm. You have to have an understanding of whatever it is you want to do. If you want to be a barber, you have to have an understanding of a barber, how to handle clippers, how to cut hair, which direction you got to go. If you want to be a cameraman like our fantastic camera person here, you have to understand how to utilize your equipment to get the product that you want in the end. And it's the same thing with money. And when we talk about changing our financial position from wherever it is, You know, you can have some, you can have none, you can have a lot, you can have I want more. Whatever it is where you are in that spectrum, we have a basic process. Mm-hmm. Just like a house, you have to have a strong foundation, a strong financial foundation.
That makes me think about in episode 1 of the podcast, we had Brother Hyder on, and he was talking about how he had been going into the barber colleges and kind of working with the students who were getting ready to graduate. And what he discovered was that so many of them, because this was their, I would say, their stepping stone. Mm-hmm. This was how they felt like they were going to have their career. And that's what it should be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the end of just making the money was all that they could see. What they really couldn't see was the process that had to be put in place in order for them to make the kind of money that they wanted to. It's not that the money wasn't there or couldn't be there. He was saying that, a lot of them didn't understand that you've got to open your shop at 6:30 in the morning so that when you take you're ready for your first customer who comes in at 7:30.
Right.
And then in the middle of the day, from 10 to 1 o'clock when everybody's at work, and you've got to be there waiting for your that because there's going to be an ebb and there's going to be a flow. And so that's that process of ebb and flow, being there, being consistent, that I think a lot of times we miss out on.
Yeah, and I think that if you just anybody, a business owner, an entrepreneur, that's just something basic that you have to understand. Mm-hmm. If you are not at your business, you're not going to make any money. One thing about Mr. Thomas, he opened this door early and he closed it late. Now, he had hours, but if somebody walked in and said, hey, I got a funeral tomorrow, can you cut me? Mm-hmm. Come on, sit down. Mm-hmm.
And we're not dismissing passive income.
We're not dismissing that. We're not.
Because as much as my dad, came through that door and stood behind this chair, he also had modes of passive income.
Right.
He had money being made for him or working for him while he slept.
Right, exactly.
And that's an element too. So we're not saying that, you got to go to a brick and mortar or you got to be grinding that. Right. We're not saying that.
But we do understand, we have to understand that we have to start somewhere. And your average person, when you're talking, they are, most times what I hear is, I don't have it. Mm-hmm. Where am I going to get it from? So my eyes sees your money differently because I'm not attached to it. Mm. So I can look at your plan and say, okay, this is what you need to do here. And this is going to free up this is going to free up that, this is going to free up this. But that's why I say you have a strong financial house, and understanding that you start with a strong financial foundation. That is your income protection. And then you have your debt management. Mm-hmm. You get rid of your debt. And then from your debt management, you move into that emergency fund. Mm-hmm. And one thing, and I will say this every time I speak with someone, one thing you have to understand is that COVID taught us that 6 months of saved income is not enough.
Right.
Because COVID lasts longer than that. And people burn through the savings that they had thinking that 6 months would be enough. So I encourage people that I work with, make that goal a year. Mm-hmm. Start where you can, but let's keep working up to that year worth of emergency fund. Mm-hmm. And then this is the one that gets most people. Investments. Because most people want, I want to invest. I want to invest. I want to invest. Investment is the last thing that you do. Why? Because if you invest, you're risking. So if you lose something,
and you can't afford
then you
to
don't
lose,
have
you're not
money.
in a position to lose.
You don't have the emergency fund. You're not in a position to lose, like you said. Your income isn't protected. Nothing is there. So you want to build up to that investment thing. But most of us want to run out. We want to, play with the market. We want to do this, and then we lose money. And then, that's, you don't want to lose money.
And then we're burned.
Yes, you don't want to lose money. So we have to understand that.
Interrupt just for a second, because I think what's important there is because you said something about being able to see my dollars differently.
Right.
I'm looking at my budget and I'm seeing I've got this income and I've got these expenses, and this is how I'm going to navigate this system. And you're able, and so I'm also seeing with a very limited view that oh wow, that means I can only do this. I'm not really in a position. I don't have enough income to protect. I don't have anything to grow on. Whereas someone who, such as yourself, you're able to look at that and see it differently. And I think that it's important that we do, and we mentioned this earlier about wanting to keep our finances secret, but I think we really, really, really do need to open our minds to having another pair of eyes to look into that for us. And I could say, because I'm telling you, when I say, like they say in the church, I've been down to the ground. I've been buked, I've been scorned, and I've been just sure as you're born, whatever the words of the song are, that basically say I've been the lowest is the low. I done been down there. I've seen where ain't no more low to go.
You done seen some stuff.
Yeah. And financially. But I've been there and had to work my way back up. And I've been there a couple of times. But I've always been a person I've always been trying to achieve something. So I've always invested in myself.
Exactly.
Everything that I wanted to accomplish, I went into my own pocketbooks, and tried to figure out how to make it happen. And so life is going to always be lifing. And
life
so
is going to
happen. But sometimes, and I think that in retrospect, had I been exposed to financial advisors, people who really can just look at your numbers and say, you know what, or look at your business plan and say, maybe if you think about doing this, do it this, or maybe if you did this way, whatever the case may be, that would have helped me financially long term. So the lessons that I've learned, I've either learned from you directly because, you've explained things to me, or I had to learn from the School of Hard Knocks. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't recover from the School of Hard Knocks. Right. So I'm at this is an okay time right now. So maybe it's time to make some moves, to get some things happening, to get some things going. And so anyway, I think that having someone that can sit down with you and say, hey, you know what? You might want to postpone that move.
True. My goal is to educate you so, one, you can understand what I'm saying to you and what your options are so you can make the best decision for your money. Because nobody should be able to move your money but you. Right? And so, but you also want to be with someone who is like myself. I'm a licensed professional in the financial industry. So I am aware of what's going on in the financial industry. The financial industry is constantly changing. What it was 10 years ago, it's not the same as it is today. 15 years ago, it's not the same. Interest rates are constantly changing. The different providers, what they're offering is constantly changing. And again, I want to make sure that I'm clear in letting you know, you hear the term advise. I am not an advisor. What I'm telling you is that I'm coming to you and educating you. And you get to make these decisions that will improve your life from a financial perspective. Okay. And I can assist you in what it is that you need because I am connected to these providers that offer these different types of programs that fit you. But the first thing is that you have to sit with me. And again, I look at your dollars. You tell me what your goals are, what you want to accomplish, when you want to reach these goals, your personal goals, your financial goals, your business goals, any kind of goal that you have, we put it on your roadmap, so to speak, and then we build that navigation system to get you there together. All right. Once we do that, then you allow this to work for you. And I stay in contact with you and we grow together on your plan. In other words, I help you move because like you say, life things are going to happen and I might contact you in 3 months or you might just pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, something's changed. I know this was the plan. Can we tweak this? Can we do this? And then, you sit with them and you say, how much money do you have saved up? And they tell you like, oh, Okay, that's a lot of money you got sitting over there. Let's move it to somewhere where you're going to get some better interest rates.
So what I hear you saying is that for the Black community,
yes, let's see what we got. Let's see what we can do. And so we can do those type of things, but that's when you're working with someone. I'm not attached to your money. So whatever you tell me you want your money to do is going to be my goal for you. But you are emotionally attached to your money. So when you go to work or whatever it is that you're doing to bring in your income, you may have a full-time job and what they quote unquote call a side hustle, but whatever it is that you're doing to bring income into your personal pocketbook, you're emotionally attached to that. I'm not. So I can look at it and I can see X, Y, and Z or LMNOP and tell you, and hopefully you will receive it and you can move on and advance from there, but it's your money at the end of the day. And it's your decision and your actions that have to help you. You have to make the decision so you can change, so you can improve. And again, I want to say it doesn't matter if you're earning $20,000 a year or if you're earning $250,000 a year. I know people that are making, I've sat with people that are making six figures and they're broke as heck. And I know people that are making very minimum income, but they're willing to do this thing and they do the thing. They set aside money and they put money away. And
so what I hear you saying is that for the Black community, while economic development, personal and communal, might be the final frontier, is not a frontier where roads cannot be paved.
That's right.
And that's what we want. We're looking forward to with you bringing on your guests and people from the industry who can tell us more, but more than anything, break down those walls that we have in our community with trying to get to professionals who can assist us with building our finances. And I think that sometimes we even have an aversion to hearing Black and wealth in the same sentence.
Yeah.
It's almost, like it's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Like that can't happen, which is, ludicrous. So we're going to bring our conversation to a close today. And we're going to look forward to you bringing on some more professionals and you guys taking us even deeper into this so that our listeners and our viewers, again, can begin to break down those walls and not be afraid to let people see where we messed up or not be afraid to let people see where we are jamming and where we're on fire with our finances, but perhaps could be doing even better because, like you said, the financial scene changes. So what do you want to take us out on?
What I want to take us out on is to know that no matter where you are financially, you can be somewhere differently. And I'm talking, when I say different, I'm talking about on the better side of it. Okay? The other thing I want to say to you is that, be careful about what you hear and see on television, social media, all these different places. I'm not bad-mouthing anyone. I'm not going to call any names. But what I want to say is that person a licensed professional? Can that person have that type of, can they show you that they are a licensed professional? And then I want to let you know that you can sit with someone and that person will not charge you to sit with them. You can sit with me. I'm not going to charge you to sit with you and help you build your financial roadmap. That's not what I'm here for. Remember, I'm about the education. Because if I educate you, then it's the possibility you may be sitting with your neighbor or your best friend or your cousin or your niece or whoever.
Or your children,
and you might be able to tell them something that they haven't heard. So the value for me is in the education. So you don't have to worry about how much is it going to cost me for this person to sit with me and talk to me. There are people out there that do charge for that. but I'm not one of them. My business partners are not one of them. That's not what we do. So I want you to know that there is hope out there to get you to understand how you can clearly get a better understanding of how money works and how that can improve your life financially. And when you improve your life financially, your whole life improves, because now you're not having to borrow. You have a plan in place, and you can walk and breathe and live a different kind of life.
Mm-hmm. And in the words of the T-shirt you are wearing,
oh yeah,
I want to say to my brothers and sisters in Acres Homes, in the city of Houston, the state of Texas, across the U.S., and across the diaspora, you won't be free until you are financially free. So I'm Norma Thomas. I have been your host for the 6th episode of Shop Talk. And remember, don't stop the conversation here. Take the conversation to your favorite barbershop, your beauty shop, and in your circle. Just keep the conversation going. Season 1 of Shop Talk Podcast is funded in part by a grant from the City of Houston through the Houston Arts Alliance.